Yokoso owashitare. Welcome back. Today's story, like the previous several stories, is actually about a warrior, a samurai gone rogue. Only this one, instead of being really good at running around on land, he was known for piracy. We'll get right into it. If you end up enjoying the video, please don't forget to leave a like, and if you want to stick around for more in the future, please subscribe. Anyway, moving on. Once upon a time, imawa mukashi, there was in the province of Iyo a man by the name of Fujiwara no Sumitomo. And if you know anything about the Fujiwara family at this time, they basically controlled the whole country. And this man, Fujiwara no Sumitomo, was the son of a man by the name of Fujiwara no Yoshinori, who was the previous governor of the province of Chikuzen, who was the son of the former governor of the province of Chikuzen. His son, however, Sumitomo, the main character here, never quite made it to the heights that his father did, because at the time he was the Jo of the province of Iyo. Jo being the third ranking highest person in the province, I believe, so not quite up there. And maybe it was because of this, maybe because he felt that he deserved more, or maybe because he just wanted more, who knows why. The story doesn't mention it. He decided to go out and gather a bunch of ferocious, stalwart men to make them something next to his kin, and he grabbed a bow and a quiver full of arrows, he got aboard a ship, and he sailed out into the open sea. And there upon the waves he began to pillage and plunder and assault all the ships that were going back and forth between the provinces in the west and the capital, and taking all of their things, killing the people in the process, and just raiding, pillaging, plundering, and pilfering his Weasley black guts out. And of course, when all of this started going down, trade stopped. The back and forth between the provinces in the west and the capital halted, because nobody wanted to sail upon the sea when there was a ferocious band of pirates out and about stealing all your stuff and killing your people. Obviously, nobody wants to deal with that. And so the back and forth stopped, but the people who relied upon this constant back and forth between the capital and the western provinces obviously started suffering because of it. This was how many of them made their living. This was how the business of government was taken care of. They needed to have open communication and open transport in between these two areas. This was not an option to not have that. And so these people got together and they sent an official petition to the emperor and the Heian court. And they explained, in the province of Iyo, the man Sumitomo commits evil acts unceasingly by pillaging, plundering, and stealing the goods of other people on the open seas and killing many in the process. He makes his living through these evil deeds. And these acts bring harm and destruction and chaos not only to private citizens, but also to the court and to the emperor's governance. Now, what's funny is it doesn't actually explain that they wanted him to do something. They simply said that this was a problem, and because it's Japanese, it's just inferred that they wanted the emperor to send a battalion or something to come deal with the problem. And of course, when the emperor received this, he was shocked, because this kind of came out of nowhere. And what the story doesn't mention until a little bit later, but I'm going to mention here, is that at the time, Taira no Masakado was out in the east, causing all sorts of problems over there. In fact, some people believe that Fujiwara no Sumitomo and Taira no Masakado, if you want to know more about Masakado, please check out the previous 3 videos on the rebellion of Taira no Masakado. But many people believed that these two were actually in an alliance of some kind to distract the central government in Heian, in Kyoto. I don't think that's actually the truth. I think 2 men just decided that they wanted to rebel for separate reasons, but there it is. It happened at roughly the same time. So of course the emperor is shocked by this. He immediately calls a man into service, commands him to go to the province of Iyo, out to the western provinces, to smite and take care of Fujiwara no Sumitomo. And that man's name was Tachibana no Toyasu. And so this man, Toyasu, humbly accepted the emperor's decree and immediately set out for the western provinces. He went to Iyo and he went to Shikoku. And Shikoku is the island that's not part of the main island of Japan. It's kind of south of the main island. And in Shikoku, and along the Sanyodo, which was an area in western Japan, he gathered together as many troops as he could possibly muster, and he then marched on the home of Fujiwara no Sumitomo. Now, Sumitomo at the time had actually hunkered down and was in a bit of a defensive position and was waiting, because Sumitomo wasn't an idiot. He could tell that by stirring up the hornet's nest like this, eventually the government and the emperor were going to send people out to come get him. And so he was holed up at home, waiting. However, apparently it was to no avail, because pretty much as soon as Tachibana no Toyasu arrived, that he immediately took the advantage, broke Sumitomo's defenses, and crushed his forces and smote him. The story doesn't go into detail of the battle, it was so swift and obviously it wasn't that important of a battle, but it does make mention of the fact that Sumitomo at this time had a son of about 13, maybe 14 years old. A good-looking kid, it mentions, by the way, whose name was Shigetamaro. And now Shigetamaro was indeed a child. I mean, 13 years old isn't exactly an adult by any stretch of the imagination. However, the story does make the point that he would also go out with his father and with these other pirate men to go pillage and plunder and loot, and as far as strength went, he was the inferior of none of the men with whom he fought. And so, because of this, Fujiwara no Toyasu believed that it was in the court's best interests to slay this kid as well. And slay him he did. And as was the custom, Toyasu took the head of Sumitomo and the head of his son and immediately sent them off to the capital so that he could present proof of his successful endeavor. And the first place these macabre trophies went to were the Stables of the Right. Now, I won't get into the details of all of the organizations of the capital at the time, but largely you can think of the capital as being separated into two distinct groups. There was the right and the left. And there were all sorts of instances, like in festivals and maybe sumo tournaments, if you want to see some of the previous videos about sumo, how there was like a right and a left. And so I don't know exactly where the right stables were, but that's where the trophies originally went to, was the right stables. And from there, word of these trophies spread all over the capital. Everyone, high, middle, and lowborn, wanted to come see the heads of the rebels that had been slain at the hands of Tachibana no Toyasu. In fact, it caused such an uproar in the capital that the streets around the Stables of the Right were thronged with both carriages and pedestrians, all trying to get a sneak peek at these terrifying trophies. There's some alliteration for you. And of course, word made it to the emperor. And word of how big of an event this suddenly became also made it to the emperor. And the emperor wanted to see them too. There was just one problem. These emblems of death, as it were, ought not to be brought into the holy precincts of the imperial palace. If you know anything about traditional Japanese culture, they have a huge disdain for ritual impurity, and perhaps the most ritualistically impure thing that you could be around was death. And so, bringing these heads before the emperor could cause some problems in that regard, and especially bringing them to the actual imperial palace was not something that anybody really wanted to do. And perhaps maybe because there was such a big hullabaloo about it, trying to move them from one place to the next was more trouble than it was worth. So instead, what they did is they called a very famous painter of the left, which again, there were two basic groups in the capital. There was the left and the right. Well, the left, the right, whatever. Left and right. And this man happened to be assigned and a part of the left side of the... Well, he didn't necessarily live in the left side of the capital, but he was with the left, okay? And this isn't the political left and right, okay? This is 1,000 years ago in Japan. Don't conflate the two. But he was with kind of the other side, I guess you could say, of the capital. But they called this man Kamori no Arikami, and he was well known throughout the capital in that his painting was so skilled and so good that when he painted something, it looked just like the actual thing. And the phrase they use here, which I find very fascinating, is "Skoshimo tago koto nakari keri," meaning that there was not even the slightest, tiniest difference between what he would see in the real world and what he put on canvas. And so the emperor called this man to the palace and instructed him, saying, "Go to the Stables of the Right and paint for me the visages of the heads of Fujiwara no Sumitomo and his son Shigetamaro, and then bring them here so I may see them for myself." And of course this man humbly accepted this command from his sovereign and immediately headed off to the Stables of the Right. And he did just as commanded. He painted those heads so good. A little messed up, but you know. And he brought his paintings back to the palace, and he showed it not only to the emperor, but to the high nobility, the most powerful men in the country, because apparently they wanted to see too. And again we find that same phrase, "Skoshi mo tago koto nakari keri." The painting was not even slightly different from the actual thing. And I'm not entirely sure what this next little sentence means, but there's an interjection in this story that says something to the effect that news of the emperor being able to witness the heads for himself was not actually known throughout the wider populace. Apparently this was something that only a privy few people were actually knowledgeable of. I think this may be the author or the compiler's way of saying that he knew some people and he had some connections, and wow, wasn't he a super cool guy? That's the only thing that I can think of why it's in here, but you know, it's in here, it's there. And after witnessing for himself the gruesome sight, the emperor then called what was essentially the capital police, the law enforcers of the city, and he had them go and take the heads and then throw them into jail. Because, I mean, they're already dead, but like, take that, I guess. And then the emperor promptly awarded Tachibana no Toyasu honors and a rank in court. It doesn't tell us what the rank is, but he gets a rank in court because, you know, good job. And then the story ends by pointing out what we have already pointed out, is that at this same time, or literally just before this whole event happened, there was the rebellion of Taira no Masakado. And thus was the news spread abroad about how there were two major rebellions in the span of a short time through all the public. Everybody was now talking about these two great rebellions that had seemed to happen side by side. Okay, that was a little bit of an awkward ending, but we are going to end it there. I have no further commentary, so if you liked this story about the pirate samurai Fujiwara no Sumitomo, please like the video if you want to stay informed for when future videos show up, because more will. And the next story I actually am a big fan of because it's about samurai dueling, which is just, I'm gonna geek out a little bit, okay? Please subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions for me, or if you notice that I got anything wrong, which does happen a lot more than I would like, please let me know in the comments, and hopefully we will see you around in the future for the next story. So I want to thank you one final time, Ito kateji ke no koso haberi kere, and we will see you in the next one. Adios.